Hey everyone, welcome back to the Life Ain't Bad podcast, where you get your fortnightly dose of pseudo-facts from a mid-20s guy going through the thick of it. I'm Oliver, and we'll be talking to the locals of Malaysia who aim to make a difference and find out how we can improve our lives from their journeys and also foreign sensations and professionals, when we can get a hold of them, that is. We'll also be discussing how certain experiences or lack of experiences or experiences we're currently going through in our lives have shaped us today. In a nutshell, come and go through life with me as we learn how to get over our struggles through listening to stories of those who've struggled and want to make a change starting right here in my home ground of Malaysia. But firstly, and most importantly, how have you been? No, seriously, verbally tell me out loud right now. I can sense your vocal energy flowing through time and space. Well, you know what? Things are going to get even better than that, and I want to be there with you when they do. Or if you just told me something that was really down, then, hey, you know what? You're here for a reason, and we're here to talk about things that will probably help each other. Okay, so today, we'll be discussing something that's plagued me for the past almost 2 years or so, because that's how long we've been trapped indoors, sort of. You see, in Malaysia, we've undergone several lockdowns, almost enough so you could use 5 fingers to count the number of times it's happened. I'm just going to jump right into it, okay? Today, we'll be talking about burnout, but not any kind of burnout, because we can deal with the normal burnout when life regains a little normalcy. The burnout I'm referring to today is pandemic burnout, or pandemic fatigue. See, pandemic burnout, or fatigue, has been described as the exhaustion you may be feeling after months of spending extra time and energy dealing with our new pandemic lifestyle, and all the struggles it's brought on, be it dealing with changing restrictions on whether we can leave our homes, whether we can dine in restaurants, or just going back to the office every 2 months and back to staying at home again for the next 2 months. It's a new concept, but by the time this whole once-in-a-lifetime event ends, the idea will be passed down for several generations as scriptures on parchment paper. Before we do get started, I'd like to say I'm not professional, and whatever I'm sharing today is of my own research, opinion, and experience, but I sure do hope it helps you out one way or another. Now, question time. Have you been experiencing any of these symptoms or feelings or emotions that the past few months, or perhaps the past year even? Have you been feeling drained, be it physically or mentally or both? Perhaps you've been super demotivated to do anything from your full-time job or your side hustle. American hustle culture. Very nice. You're stressed out about how you're performing at work. Maybe you've been suffering feelings of dread for yourself and others around you. Disconnection from friends and family. Oh, here's another one. Quickness to anger or just agitation. And lastly, headaches and sleeplessness. Sure, these all sound pretty generic occurrences on their own, but what happens when you've collected quite a few of them? Like Pokemon. You get pandemic burnout. You see, it's been crazy because I've been indoors effectively for about a year. Sure, there's been easing on lockdowns for periods at a time, but at this point when another one is announced, I transform into a yes man and just say, okay, it be what it be. It do be what it do be. Time to fork out more money on takeout because delivery prices are extortionate. I'll say it honestly though, working from home is great and all, but there comes a point where I start worrying about whether I'm doing enough regarding my job, and if I'm performing well enough because I don't get to interact with my colleagues and banter every other day. It's as if I'm struggling with extra guilt for not working harder on my job and the things I want to do on the side, and I beat myself up for it, for not being more productive. It's also come to a point where I feel time has become even more abstract than it already is. It kind of feels like I'm a character in a video game, being controlled by someone else, and all I get to experience is the sun setting and the darkness consuming my soul until I lay myself to rest in a temporary slumber once more. Every day feels the exact same, and eventually it's difficult to take notice of the good things that happen in a day, and much, much easier to be affected by bad news or bad social media posts. It's also been harder and harder to wake up on the usual times that I do because I want some variety in my life before I close my eyes, because I want every day to feel different. To the point I wake up at, let's say, 8:20 a.m. one day and 8:25 a.m. then another, because it adds a little bit of spiciness to the day. Like, kick the day off with a little kick. You know what I'm saying? I also experience that I'm physically and mentally more exhausted than I usually am. And even though I should be having more time to myself, right? It's weird. You see, there are a few reasons as to why you start experiencing all these symptoms above, and I myself have experienced the same thing. Essentially, we're struggling with increased stress and anxiety, and to another extent, depression. The first is that, and this is important to note, our sleep patterns affect our mental health, and our mental health affects our sleep patterns. And this is a vicious cycle that will send you down a sinkhole because, from my experience, when we have the same day every day, we try and spice it up a little, as mentioned before. So we stay awake a little later because we need that one extra episode, that one extra Twitter thread to end the night on a high. And we're not going to bed until we get that sense of satisfaction. Or if we don't, we stay up until we just pass out. Then we get up the next day feeling tired if we don't get enough sleep throughout the night, and that affects our mood throughout the day. So what happens when our mood is bad the next day? We try and find ways to boost it, and only proper ways we can are through things we can do at home. And at some point, all that becomes mundane as well, and so what do? From a piece of research done by the Washington State University, Cindy Sang states that a pattern that is consistent across 3 studies associated to moods and behaviors is that people who reported change in physical exercise, alcohol use, and sleep are more stressed, anxious, and depressed than those who said that they have had no change throughout the pandemic. This shows that sleep does have an effect on our everyday moods, and why you start feeling stressed and anxious, then you get exhausted and demotivated and engaging in negative thoughts and expectations, and when all that happens, you get restless and you're constantly trying to pull yourself out of it because you just don't get enough sleep. A second possible reason why the pandemic burnout can get worse is because we aren't able to disassociate from work. It's as if we're working more compared to when we were in our offices, because there's not exactly a proper clock in, clock out system anymore. We feel as if we're on call all the time. Sure, sometimes we can't tell our superiors that, no, I'm off work now. But it's this inability to disassociate from work that results in lower likelihood of engaging in activities such as exercise, sleep, and self-care that help with recovery from stress, anxiety, and the whole lot. The longer expected work time, along with less ability to recover, then makes the whole burnout cycle from constant stress continuous and never-ending. Now, you're emotionally exhausted and disconnected, which then creates the inability to recover and leads to this pile-up effect where more and more of everything gets piled onto you, and it's harder to recover each time. Lastly, you may be experiencing pandemic burnout simply because you're bored. You're bored out of your mind, like me. You see, our brain craves novelty, learning, and stimulation. During this whole pandemic, we basically lost environmental enrichment, like being outside our homes, bumping into people even if we don't like them, the wondrous everyday adventure of commuting to work. Hell, even the excitement of getting your soy caramel macchiato with 3 shots of espresso and the blood of your enemies. Not my order. I got it from a friend. All these things have disappeared from the life we've grown so accustomed to, and when all that stimuli gets taken away, how do we fill up that engagement with our surroundings and all this time that we have now at home? This whole lifestyle is new to us, and we don't exactly know what to do with all that we have now, or what little we have. Never mind. All these things that we are collectively being deprived of is very closely associated with this thing that our brain needs, or perhaps what allows our brain to thrive: synaptic plasticity. See, synaptic plasticity, in a nutshell, helps the brain's ability to create and remember new connections and memories and learn new things. It's as if the muscle that we use every day in order to process new experiences and absorb foreign ideas is dormant. To me, it feels as if a part of me has disappeared, and I never knew this part of me was so important to me until now. It's as if I've lost a part of my world, and I don't know what I can do to fill that void. Which is why every day feels mundane and similar, and now I yearn to jazz it up a little. And yeah, I definitely mean putting on Frank Sinatra every day and singing to myself in the shower. I have housemates. I'm so sorry to them. I'm sorry. So now we kind of know what makes our burnout that much worse. So how do we live with it? I don't say deal with it, because let's be real, we spend most of our lives not in a pandemic. And this too, like everything else, will eventually pass. What we can do now, though, is accept it and learn to love it like that one really annoying cousin that just pisses you off. So, what do? I've been doing these things for a while now. Relatively, I feel as if I've done this for years in the past year alone. The things that I do to maintain my sanity are split into two different categories, physical and mental. We'll go through the mental side of it first because, hey, this whole once-in-a-lifetime event has been mental, hasn't it? Ah. I'll ask you this first, though. How often have you sat in front of your computer or TV and spent mind-numbing hours just watching your shows or your telenovelas and come out of it feeling worse? Like perhaps you felt as if you need to be doing something productive instead. Or perhaps you didn't exactly enjoy your time watching. So now, time feels as if it just flew on by, and then tomorrow is here and the cycle repeats once more. I felt like crap most days when I went through this. Now, however, I tweaked something in my brain, and the way I see and experience relaxation is totally different. So yes, we watch shows and read and listen to podcasts because they're enjoyable, right? Or is it because it fills up our time when we have nothing better to do or don't feel like doing something? You see, what I did was relax purposefully and mindfully. What I mean is, when you're binging anime, playing games on Steam, or sharing your cooking successes on Instagram, really immerse yourself in what you're doing. Really put yourself in a position where that's where all your focus is on. Because, hey, you've already decided this is what you want to do and what you're going to do, and you've got time for it. So why should you feel guilty when you can afford it? Because when you stressfully watch your shows and feel like there's a monkey on your back the whole time, perhaps you're purposefully choosing to worry over relaxing, even if you don't even realize it immediately. It's a bit like one of those times where you're thinking of checking off the next task on your to-do list, rather than focusing on the one at hand, relaxing. You've already placed yourself in prime position to enjoy something, so enjoy it to the fullest, so that when you're done, you'll feel energized to do what you need to do, or just move on to the next thing, instead of half-assing watching Netflix and the whole day and coming out feeling bad. In a weird way, being mindful about relaxing gives you a sort of a gateway into meditation. Think about it. Meditating by watching Netflix sounds like a good deal to me. Really enjoy and feel what you're doing. Another mental thing that I've adjusted in my very tiny brain is adjust my expectations and embrace acceptance. Adjust my expectations and embrace acceptance. Let's say another lockdown occurs. If you started with high expectations like, yes, you're going to learn a whole other language or a new skill this time around, it's totally alright not to have it on your to-do list. When you have too many things on your plate, logically you're getting overwhelmed. Let's bring a metaphorical example into this, huh? It's how my tiny brain processes things. Leave me alone. Okay, on your plate, you could have familiar things like potatoes, beef, and foods you're familiar with. But when you introduce to yourself, let's say, 3 new foods that you've never had, escargot, chicon liver, and whole grain pasta, you'll probably feel a little uneasy having to eat it all. Now, you've got to eat them frequently when you've never had the chance to really get to know them yet. Y'all haven't even had drinks and shared intimate personal stories about yourselves to them yet. So you're suffering burnout from your full-time job and suffering added pressure on yourself to come out this period with something to show for it, which fuels the burnout because you feel tired and uninspired, and so you search for ways to make yourself feel better, and you go and binge shows and stay on social media so you're sleep deprived as well. Basically, you've got to lower your expectations on what you want to achieve during another lockdown, so you can focus on what matters in the moment. Not getting burnt out from your job, focusing on full relaxation and getting some sleep. Not to say that you shouldn't work on your side hustles and your full-time job and things like that, but cut yourself some slack. Cut yourself some slack and know that whatever you're doing right now is fine. And loads of people are not going to judge you for it. Basically, nobody's going to judge you for it. We're all suffering the same thing right now and you all want to come out of it unscathed. So be kind to yourself. Which brings us to the next segment, okay? Physical changes that I've done to my everyday routine to unburn out myself. I think the best way to truly describe what I've done that's been so impactful is that I've learned to allocate my time for work, to do things that I truly want to fit into my schedule that spices up my everyday routine. Keyword, allocate. I don't say reallocate because I'm sure most of us don't allocate our time in the first place. I'll give you an example as to what I do. Remember one of the reasons why burnout may feel worse? We aren't able to disassociate ourselves from work. Work feels like an all-day thing now. To me, when the workday is slow, coming to an end, as in the usual 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 p.m., I ensure that when that time comes, I'm off. Towards the end of the workday, I'm at my most unproductive, and the moment I start feeling that way, I hop off work and get to working out because that brings me lots of joy and relaxation. Or, I start beginning my incantations to summon spirits to bring me into the nether realm and banish myself from this world. You know, the usual Monday things. So this brings me back to the mental aspect of it. I truly and fully relax mindfully and purposefully by allocating my time to do so. See how I bring those two together? I truly and fully relax mindfully and purposefully by allocating my time to do so. Now you might have a question of, how long can I allocate my time to do what I want to do? And the answer is beautiful, because it's as much as you want, as long as you're really enjoying yourself. Some nights, I allocate the whole night to relax, watch shows, or play video games, and it feels so much better because I allow myself to do so. A difference that I've realized with my daily actions and emotions is that when I do want to do something that I'm working on as a passion project, or when I'm working on work, I tend to do so more purposefully as well, with more focus and energy, because I know that I've got loads of time, loads of time later on to chill out. With this, allocate your time to do what you want to do and not feel guilty about it and really enjoy yourself. With moderation, of course. You can't spend every waking moment just watching anime. Or can you? Well, as long as that helps you. Right? Yeah. As long as you feel like it's helping you. What's the next thing that I do physically to prevent burnout? So this one's great, and I'm sure you're gonna love it. I sleep more. I'm talking about both duration and intensity. Sleep longer and have better sleeps. I'm gonna whip out some research findings right now, alright? According to a study done by, names that Oliver is going to butcher, Trentafilo, Sape, Lati, Morn, Cording in 2019, they've concluded that sleep quality has an effect on mood, and mood has an effect on sleep quality. So it's pretty much a two-way relationship. Kind of like how I tell my brother I miss him and he tells me to shove my missus up my ass. Very classy. But you already know this from what I mentioned earlier in this episode. The key takeaway from this research, however, is that the effect on sleep quality on mood was significantly larger than the effect of mood on sleep quality. Your sleep affects your mood more than your mood affects your sleep. So yes, the vicious cycle of not enough sleep results in a bad mood, so we find other ways to boost our mood before sleep, which leads to bad or not enough sleep. So we know mood is hard to change, as we have all experienced, which is why we get more upset when someone ruins our mood than when someone ruins our sleep. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Instead of looking for solutions to boost your mood, find solutions to have better sleep, and they'll shoot your mood right up. Unlike my grades, of course, growing up. Another research paper by a whole load of academics in 2021 concluded that out of 6,882 participants, more than half the sample shifted their sleep towards later go-to-bed and wake-up times, and more than a third reported increased sleep disturbances during the pandemic. With good reason, like stricter levels of quarantine and pandemic-related factors such as being laid off, financial strain, or just difficulties transitioning to work from home. All this associated with poorer sleep. Then, they concluded that poorer sleep was correlated with higher depression, anxiety, and stress, reflecting the close relationship between sleep and mood. Thus, they also found that healthy sleep is associated with enhanced mood, improved immune functioning, and better physical health. I can confirm this because I finally have the energy and mood to create episodes for you guys. After I'm done using most of my energy watching 4 hours of YouTube videos a day. Trust me. Just trust me on this one. You know how sleep is essential to repairing the muscles after a hefty workout and giving you enough energy for the day? The same concept applies to your mental health. You've got to repair yourself from the mental beating you took from yesterday after you left your house to get a really nice cheesecake from your favorite cafe only to find it was closed. Only pain. So here are a few quick tips to improve your sleep by your own personal Snorlax here. One difference I've realized that changed my whole sleep pattern and quality of sleep is by exposing myself to natural sunlight or just bright light throughout the day, as this will regulate your circadian rhythm. A circadian rhythm is a natural internal process that regulates the sleep-wake cycle and repeats roughly every 24 hours. Essentially, it's your body clock, which would one day become totally digital when we humans are replaced by robots and then we become robots ourselves. Hot robo boys summer, here we come. It's shown that people with insomnia experience better sleeps by doing this. There was a distinct difference when I stayed in my room all day and working instead of outside in my living room, where sunlight could caress my beautifully suntanned, blemish-free skin. Alright, I'm kidding. The only thing suntanned is my snake plant Medusa fighting for her life right now. I'm so sorry. She's outside on the balcony as we speak, regulating her circadian rhythm. I'll join her in a little bit after this whole ordeal that we're dealing with right now. So next, I've mentioned this before, but I'll say this again. No electronics before bed. But I'm mostly referring to blue light, even though that sounds mildly racist. So I know what you're thinking. It's difficult to do so because what am I going to do right before bed? What am I going to do with 10-15 minutes without electronics, Ollie? Be honest with me. How am I going to survive? Simple, but it takes a little bit of discipline, but hey. Do you want to have even deeper sleeps and better dreams? Or nah? Maybe your dreams will end up with your crush kissing you this time. What I do, and you can replicate this before bed, I'll plug in the charger into my phone and head to the bathroom, where I'll brush my teeth, wash my face, and apply my face cream. Your boy here's got some sun-tanned, unblemished skin to maintain. By that time, 6 minutes would have passed already. I'll then go into my room, drink some water, and get under the sheets. Wait, Ollie, that's only 7 minutes. Yeah, I know. But here's the fun part. I get to focus on relaxing for the next few minutes, or actually however long I want. You see, most nights I don't focus on falling asleep. I focus on relaxing with my own thoughts and deep breaths in the dark, and before I know it, I would have fulfilled the good 15 minutes without electronics before bed, and my eyes aren't strained. They aren't strained by blue light, and I'm dead asleep in no time. Coming from a guy with 650-degree vision, you can take it from me when I say my eyes are mad relaxed by this time, because they're never relaxed. Give it a go, and let me know. So 2 more quick tips. Optimize your bedroom for sleep. Now, optimize can mean different things for different people. But what it means is, get it as comfy and clean as possible. You ever tried sleeping peacefully in a musky Airbnb compared to a nice hotel room? Right? The difference feels like light and day. Night and day. The difference feels like night and day. Haunted and purified. Also coming from a guy who's had his hometown house blessed like 5 times in a decade, you can trust me. Lastly, sleep and wake up at consistent times, even on weekends. If possible, unless there are events to tune into, of course, of that I can excuse you. Be free, young one. This is because irregular sleep patterns can alter your circadian rhythm and levels of melatonin, which signals your brain asleep. Like everything else in life, if you're consistent enough, you will yield success. Can you imagine? Being world champion for being the best sleeper around. Heck, I bet some of you are already claiming that you already are the champion. So here's the last physical change that you can do to prevent burnout, and the last change that's helped me effectively, and that is exercise. Ew, I know, ew. I don't want to do it either, but it's part of my life and habits now, and that if I don't do it, I feel worse than actually not doing it. Damn, that sounds crazy. Dang, that sounds mad. If you think ew, or you just don't have the time, that's what I meant by allocation as a point before. Allocation of your time is your best friend. Here's a little epiphany that you can have right now. If we can spend 5 hours on our phones every day, we can exercise for just 10-15 minutes each day. Don't lie to me, iPhone users. We all know we can check this data from our phones. As of right now, my daily average screen time is 4 hours and 48 minutes, and I am not ashamed of myself because I accept who I am. But I definitely want to cut that down a little more. With allocation of time, I live and die by this idea now, and it has helped me push beyond my comfort zones into the unknown, and it's made me realize doing new things or setting time to do things that I want to do ain't too bad. It's scary, yeah, but that's what courage feels like. It's absolutely dreadful. You set some time out for yourself to watch shows, and you just feel like, is this proper? Is this the right thing that I should be doing right now? But who gets to decide that? Only you do. You get to decide whether watching shows will be fruitful for you, and no one else can judge that. You see, this all just sounds like procrastination, doesn't it? But there's a buttload of reasons, the hugest ass cheeks of reasons as to why we don't want to do something right now, or just don't want to do what's good for us. But that's for a whole different episode. When I say exercise, don't worry about having to prepare a workout plan and get the routines all right before you start. Do it first and think about it later. Keep it plain and simple starting out. None of that jog for 30 minutes, 50 push-ups nonsense. Instead, just start with 10 push-ups, 20 push-ups. And they don't even have to be in perfect form. Maybe even a quick 10-minute brisk walk outside if you're allowed. What you're trying to do is to create the habit of exercising and not thinking too far ahead of becoming a workout freak. Just a habit. But we'll talk about habits or how to install a new program into your system in another episode up ahead. So stay tuned for that. To summarize, we're all going through a tough time right now. And there definitely are a few things we can do immediately to try and get through burnout. Be it mentally by allocating time you spend in your day, adjusting your expectations and relaxing mindfully, or physically by making sure you get good sleep and exercise. Want to know what my new motto is? Today has been a day. That's what I tell myself most days, so I can acknowledge that days can be hard. But I got through it, and you can too. Burnout is a part of life. So let's live with it and find ways to burn up. I was trying to make a joke about turning up, but that didn't work out. At the end of the day, with burnout, especially pandemic burnout, accomplishing big things may seemingly feel like insurmountable mountains they have to climb, and you beat yourself up about it because, hey, why can't I do this right now in this period of time? Do you know what the hardest part is, truly? Doing all the small things. That's the hardest part. So, when you're able to change things up in your lifestyle, like sleeping better or exercising for 10 minutes a day, that in itself is an accomplishment worth celebrating because that will dig you out of the rut in due time. Celebrate your wins when you can. I believe in you, so believe in yourself. We can get out of this rut. Trust me. And here we are. Hopefully the end of pandemic burnout. Who am I kidding? Get me out of this pandemic already. It's never ending. What's happening? But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. And I hope it helps you in some way. If you really like the podcast and you think it could help a certain someone, share it with them and let them know where they can find it. lifeaintbad.podcast on Instagram. You can find us on Apple iTunes, Spotify, on all the platforms that you would normally listen to a podcast on. You can also support the podcast on our Patreon if you'd like to see this podcast blossom into a beautiful butterfly one day, much like yourselves. Unless you're already a beautiful butterfly, which you are as well. Also, if any of you have a certain topic you'd like me to discuss with you, shoot me a DM and let me know. But for now, this is Oliver signing off. And remember, folks, life ain't bad. It's just complicated. I'll see you in the next one. See you.